Chainsaw Man is known for being an anime and a manga that doesn't give you much time to breathe. Things happen 24/7. You go from one arc to the other and the narrative progresses non-stop. That's how it was until part 2 of the series, where everything slowed down drastically, for better or worse. I think that the second part of Chainsaw Man is way below the first, and there are multiple reasons for that. First, I need to mention that the recent chapters, you know, the Shinji incident, isn't one of the reasons. I mean, come on, Chainsaw Man was always weird. Are we really surprised that this happened? Like, oh wow, Denji getting sexually assaulted never happened before. Let's leave the bad things that happened to Denji and let's look at the good things that part 2 has to offer. First, a really obvious one, Asa Mitaka, the other protagonist of the series. How do I describe her? Well, she's a complete loser, a femcel. That's the first impression we get from her. She is a fun character all around, but the interesting part is her dynamic with Yoru, the devil that's inside of her.
What do you mean by that?
She has an ability that turns anything into a weapon, and if Asa feels more guilt because of it, then the weapon becomes stronger. But because Asa is a complete loser, she doesn't even have someone that's close to her. So they need to create that, like find a lover or something. To understand her more, she is someone that wants solitude, but after some time she feels lonely, so she craves a close relation with someone. However, she is scared of that, so she's in a constant loop of being scared to be alone and also being scared of relationships because of bad experiences. And now she needs to get close to someone in order to turn that person into a weapon for Yoru so that she can leave her body. So another conflict within herself sparks. Yoru will bring death to more people, so if she gets close to one person, then it will be one death. But that death will hurt her, so she doesn't know what to truly do. Something for the greater good or for herself. Those are the internal conflicts that Asa goes through and what makes her more than just a fun character. She's actually really great. And to make everything better, we have the dynamic between Asa and Denji. And in classic Chainsaw Man fashion, their relation starts off bad, then they get closer, then something happens and it goes to shit, then oh we're so fucking back, they're having fun together. Oh. You don't know what to expect from them with every interaction, and that makes it so fun to read. The internal conflicts that Denji goes through in part 2 are much better than before. He finally has the chance to have a completely normal life. That was his dream pretty much, but he also wants to be Chainsaw Man. He can't be both. With part 2, Chainsaw Man is more than just Denji, a natural progression given the things that he did in part 1. He is known by everyone, and people have mixed opinions. Some idolize him, some hate him because of the damage he does to buildings and stuff whenever he fights. You know how chaotic shit gets with him. Strange rumors start to occur, like him eating humans and or animals. Also, a group to support him and fight devils appeared, called the Chainsaw Man Church. And since it's mostly made out of teenagers, political figures want to invest in those kind of things to get votes from the youth. Alright, so why does Denji fight? Why is he Chainsaw Man in the first place? To save humanity? Hell nah. He could not care less about that. He is a selfish idiot. He just wants recognition and bitches pretty much. But since Chainsaw Man became more than just Denji, he doesn't need to fight anymore. He isn't the protagonist. They are taking that away from him. Yoshida and the group that protects him are making a fake Chainsaw Man to take the spotlight and protect the identity of the real one. Now they gave him two options. Be Chainsaw Man and let Nayuta die, or live a normal life with Nayuta, the now control devil. Denji's family pretty much. So he made the choice to stay by her side, now truly having the opportunity to live like a normal human, the dream that he longed for so long. The problem is, however, that Denji only knows how to be Chainsaw Man. Nothing more, nothing less. That's all he is. That's all he knows. Both Asa and Denji go through their own battles that are well executed, and they are changing slowly as they deal with them. So, the ideas behind the second part are great. The switch from the first part to now feels natural and it makes sense. The problem, however, is the execution. It's a good thing that the series slowed down. It needed to, but it slowed down a bit too much. I started part 2 when there were about 20 chapters out. From then I just kept with it weekly or whenever a chapter got out. But I went back to read part 2 from start to finish and I felt like it dragged on too much from time to time. Reading it weekly you don't realize it, but going through it all fast you do feel it. I think that part 1 was too fast paced. You didn't get a lot of time to just take it in. We went from event to event without stopping. And now we got a needed slowdown to everything. But where do we draw the line, and why does it feel so slow? I mean, things happen, the story goes on slowly, almost everything builds up to something. I'll tell you why it feels so slow and what's the big problem with part 2. But first I want to compare the first part to the second. Look, it might not be the best comparison because one part is too fast while the other is too slow, but it's the same series, so you know I can't compare it to something else. So as of the making of this video, we have 169 chapters out, and part 2 started with chapter 98, so including that chapter, we got a total of 72 chapters since part 2 started. Now let's look at part 1 and just see some things that happened in the span of 72 chapters. Okay, I'll just skip the first 38 chapters, so like season 1, because that's the introduction pretty much, getting used to the world and the series in general, but from there it picks up and never looks back. I mean, we get the bomb girl arc with Therese and everything. That arc alone clears everything that we've seen so far from part 2. We get the International Assassins arc with Santa Claus and Quangxi. We also have the Darkness Devil, which was one of the most intense and what the fuck moments in the whole series. And we reach the start of the Gun Devil arc, and we know just how emotional and hyped that was. But we only get like 2 chapters from it, so I shouldn't really count it. Anyway, you get the idea. In part 1 with 72 chapters, we got through the Bomb Girl arc and International Assassins, not to mention the start with Katana Man arc. A bit too much, for sure, but it's better than nothing. In part 2, I feel like the series just now started to pick up. The big problems with it is just that we don't have enough big moments, events that move the story. I won't say anything about the introduction, since we needed to get used to Asa, to understand her, and to understand how things changed for Denji and the chainsawman world in general. But after that point, the only big event that happened and has the potential to move the story is the house burning down with the dogs and Nayuta missing, something that started at like chapter 150. That's one thing that part 2 misses, a lack of events to move the story. Again, part 1 was too fast and part 2 is too slow, so it's not the best to compare, but I think this shows that the second part is missing big events. That's why it feels so dragged. Things are happening. The Nostradamus prophecy with the mention of the strongest devil, death. The plan to make Chainsaw and War Devil strong to fight it. Asa and Denji's dynamic in general. Things are building up. Things are happening. But we miss the events to move the story more. Also, the side characters. That's the other problem I have with part 2. I love that Fujimoto took the risk of killing the important cast in part 1. It made everything feel intense as no one is safe, and it made Denji's inner problems in part 2 much more impactful. But this is, of course, a risk. To kill the beloved cast. The series needs to replace the cast, and it's hard to make characters to the story as good as Aki, Power, Makima, the big three that we lost in part 1. So far, Asa is the only one that can compete with the old cast. If you think that she's better than the others or not is a subject for another matter, but she does fill in the void that was made with killing everyone off. However, it's not enough. She's just one character, fighting to fill in the void of 3. We need another important and good character to the story, villain or not, just something more. As good as Mitaka is, she's not enough for this. Also, where is Kishibe and Kobeni? Okay, I get Kobeni since she isn't a devil hunter anymore, and I don't think she was that great of a character in the first place. But Kishibe, I don't know about you man, but he was my goat. And he was a beloved character. I hope we get to see him soon, since the story needs more. For the other characters that we do have in part 2, well, Yoshida is alright, sure. And we got some old faces back for a bit. About Nayuta, I think she's fine, but I don't really see her as her own character yet. I feel like her role is to show that Denji matured a bit after the traumatic events of part 1, and to also give Denji the conflict of being chainsawman or not, and to give him something to protect and to take care of. So far, that's the role that Nayuta has, so she isn't enough to fill in the void. Also kinda unrelated, but what in the actual fuck was chapter 137? Overall, part 2 is still fine. I at least enjoy it. However, it's definitely a fall off compared to what part 1 offered, at least at the moment. I have faith in the series and in Fujimoto. I know that he is a great writer, so if he wants to, he can make it as good, if not better than part 1. Oh, also another negative, although not as important, the art. At the early chapters it was fine, but around 140 or something it became worse. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's complete ass and it doesn't take me out of the story. But it's a thing that people complain about, so I mentioned it as well. Still, there are some people that actually like it. Anyway, liking the art style or not is completely subjective, but it 100% got worse. There are some nice panels here and there, mainly the background. They often go hard. Like, look at the recent chapters with Denji being down cause he got jerked off. I wish I was joking. The background is fire as fuck. I heard that the author got tired of drawing, so that's why it looks like this now. He wants to just write the story, so maybe we can see a change if he gets someone to draw for him. I hope it's someone that can make his style. You know, like Miura trained people to make a similar art style for Berserk and it comes out great. A part of chainsawman's charm is the art. Although it doesn't look the same, it still has that Fujimoto feel, to say it like that. I think that's why I'm fine with it. It still fits the series. So I hope that he can find someone to make the style if he truly doesn't want to draw anymore. I think that's all I can say about Chainsaw Man Part 2, a mixed bag, but it holds a lot of potential. I hope this video ages like milk, and the complaints I made here will not hold until the end of the series. Given the recent chapters, I think we are finally on the move with the story. So maybe in 20 chapters, the big events and side characters that were lacking will be a thing of the past. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate you dropping a like and a subscribe. Also follow the Twitter, and I'll see you on the next one.